Hello and welcome back to the Scooter Pod, the cheesiest podcast on the internet. That's right, folks. The Oklahoma Sooners are heading to the Cheez-It Bowl in Orlando, Florida, to take on the Florida State Seminoles. Unreal, crazy result. I don't think any of us expected the Cheez-It Bowl at this point, but here we are. So that's pretty great. Jameson, first reaction to this. I feel like when we realized this was going to be a really bad OU season, we were all like, okay, this is the chance for the Cheez-It Bowl. As it got worse, it didn't look like it was going to happen. And when we got to 6-6, dead in the water. But here we are. We're at the Cheez-It Bowl.
What we didn't take into account is how powerful Cheez-It is amongst college football. It's not like we were the second, best Big 12 team left and Cheez-It got handed Oklahoma to play Florida State. It was Kansas State's going to the Sugar Bowl, TCU's going to the playoffs. You can pick, and then Texas, is going to the Alamo Bowl. Who do you want left? And they looked and they saw some 7-5 teams like Texas Tech, and they're like, we would rather have Oklahoma, so they got Oklahoma. And it feels so good to be wanted by Cheez-It because we've loved them since their inception. The TCU California game, one of the most fun I've had watching a college football game, not OU. I am ecstatic to be a part of this.
Yeah, and technically this is more the old corpse of the Wrestle Athletic / Camping World Bowl that just has Cheez-Its name on it. So it's actually kind of a good bowl. And it really speaks to the brand power of OU that they put in the worst OU team in 23 years over the best Texas Tech team since the Mike Leach era, Oklahoma State. I believe Baylor was also around there, and shipped them off to worse bowls. And we got the Cheez-It Bowl against a pretty solid Florida State team. Ty, what are your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, I think we're nailing it. It is another example. We talked about it on our podcast that we recorded earlier today about how the playoff teams are actually ranked. There's, they determine their 4, and then from there, 1 through 4 doesn't really matter. They're just matchmaking matchups. And I think what we're seeing now with this Cheez-It Bowl is they've made their choice because of brands, like we've talked about. They want that Oklahoma brand in there, and it's almost, if you don't like it, if it leaves a bad taste in your mouth, if you feel like we cheated some people or something like that as OU. This is how bowls sort of used to be. The individual bowl had some pull and some say in who they got and who they could get, and that's kind of what we saw, sort of an old school way of things here, at least as far as we can tell publicly. I think it is a good opportunity for OU. Do I think OU is going to win? I don't know, but being able to go play a game down in Orlando this time of year and against another, like we talked about, the ideal bowl situation is to match up against another brand that has some sort of brand recognition to it, and go down to a place where OU recruits and would like to recruit even more, and facing a school that we are potentially sometimes recruiting against, that is conditions set for a good situation. What we do with the opportunity we've been given, we'll see, but we certainly, there were worse options out there for OU. So I think this is a really good opportunity for Oklahoma.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, there's a part of it that, not only is it a cool bowl trip, you get to go to Orlando, you get to go to Disney, all the stuff that goes along with that, but also it's a good opponent. It's a good test for 2023. Florida State is, as I don't know how closely y'all have followed Florida State, but they're not a bad team. They only have 3 losses, all of which happened against ranked opponents in the middle of the season, and they've been on a tear. They've kind of had things going around the right way under, I believe, Mike Norvell. So Florida State is, and we'll go way deeper into Florida State as we get closer to the Cheez-It Bowl, so we have some time to research and really dive in. But I think the fact that it is a good team, a good opponent, is really enticing, really interesting for sure.
It's going to be a really tough game for OU. Both tackles not playing, moving on to the draft. And Florida State's pass rush is absolutely no joke. They've already come out and their best pass rusher, Jared Verse, linebacker, edge rusher, is playing, and that's going to be a problem. We're going to have a true freshman at left tackle and Jacob Sexton, and then Tyler Guyton on the other side. We are going to dive into all of the details about Florida State, but this is no walk in the park. I think we saw Action Network post a projected line of -1. No bookmakers have had out real ones yet, but -1's pretty steep for a 6-6 team versus a team that's coming in pretty close to full strength in Florida State.
Yeah, and that's one thing that's so tricky is it's hard to really get a grasp of this game without the opt-outs. Obviously, there are some early ones. Eric Gray not playing. Neither are Wanya Morris or Anton Harrison for OU. Those are just the initial ones that Brent Venables has noted, which I think that's fair. It's the NFL draft, and you don't want to get hurt in the Cheez-It Bowl. That ultimately doesn't matter all that much.
I think again. I got hurt in the Cheez-It Bowl and into my career. I lost millions of dollars from it.
I tore my ACL, but I got some nice Cheez-It swag.
Got to stay in the Cheez-It suite, baby.
The cheesiest suite. I'm just saying. But no, it's yeah, that's obviously going to be a bit of a struggle. But as we've been saying for time and time again, the bowl is about preparation for the future. It's about those extra practices, and it's about everything that comes with it. No one's going to be like, oh, we lost the Cheez-It Bowl, season over. We're 6-6. But it is a chance to really get some momentum and really kind of build that up. And Ty, I want to ask, would you rather have played a weaker team in a worse location, or would you rather play Florida State, like a very solid team? Does it do more to go against better competition, or to just beat the crap out of, I don't know, let's say Air Force?
So if I can be frank, and this is not a bit, I know I've threatened that I will not say a single positive thing about this Oklahoma team again until they win a conference championship. I will do my best to hold myself to that. That doesn't mean I have to be mean, though, right? I can just be even. I can just be, neutral, which is the stance that I will take. But I think, to be frank, most likely OU is going to lose this game, right? If we can peel back, you guys don't have to agree. This is my opinion, but most likely OU is going to lose. So best case scenario is we load up those excuses. I mean, not a hedge, but if we go and get embarrassed against some terrible team, it's going to look bad. We've just spent the entire season getting kicked while we're down by all these people that have all this pent up anger against the Oklahoma brands. If we're going into and facing a team that is at 9 wins, tremendous motivation to get to 10 wins, that's a big mark on someone's schedule. They've already announced that most of their people are playing. It means a lot to them. It's in their home state. We can line up all these hedges that sort of, I don't want to say we should be doing that, because I don't think we should. I think we should be going out trying to win this game. And I think it is within reach to win this game, even with some key people out. But I think best case scenario always is get those highlight reels against the other brands, go to places that are going to be cool to the players, go to places where the weather is going to permit, like you said, just more practices. Hopefully we have a bunch of opt-outs and everything else. Hopefully we're looking forward and we're investing in these practicing, in this practice time and in this game time, and guys who can learn from it and help us down the road and things like that. So I think that this is realistically, I think having gone 6-6 in the way our season's gone, in terms of bowl placement, how competitive we're going to be in this is certainly a question. But the bowl placement could not have gone any better. And I would not entertain personally any argument for, I'd rather have a worse team that we could maybe beat, or a worse bowl game or something. If people want to say, I would have rather had a game that's drivable distance for OU fans, I will absolutely buy into that. Take some terrible game that's in Dallas or somewhere drivable in Texas or Louisiana or Memphis or something. I would wholeheartedly support that. For the fan experience, that's what it's all about. But yeah, I don't have any qualms with this game.
Jameson, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's what we saw last year in the postseason during a time we were also very broken for different reasons. How crucial a quote unquote meaningless game can actually help a team in terms of momentum. Obviously, we had a lot of external factors like Bob Stoops joining the program that kind of helped bring the morale back up. But coming out and kind of ending this poor season on a positive note would be an extremely positive thing for us moving towards into this offseason. It seems like our recruiting is standing strong for the most part. Obviously, a lot of assumptions are going into a very pivotal month of December with early signing day. But having a win versus Florida State, a big brand that has a lot of money around it, and we've done it in the past whenever we've played these kind of games like versus Florida and Oregon, would be huge for us. We need that. The great part about good leaders is they can take things that might not mean as much to other people on the surface, but if Brent Venables can turn this win, if we were to win this game, into a positive rallying call for people to try and work really hard this offseason, I think that would be a huge deal for them.
Yeah, no doubt. And we've seen, bowls, that, as you'll say, oh, they don't matter, whatever. But you'll see some programs win a bowl game and there is momentum. That was the case with Oklahoma last year. Beat Oregon, have a little bit of momentum going, and even though it didn't translate to on-field success, it gives you good vibes about the program into the spring and summer months. So I think that's pretty good, especially beating a team like Florida State, who is a little bit outside of our realm, but that is a team you can beat. It kind of reminds me of the situation we had in the Holiday Bowl in 2006. Played it like a sixth ranked Oregon team when we went like 7-5, weren't very good, but we turned around, we beat them, and that was something that really helped establish the team for the next year. So it's not what we want. You don't start a football season wanting the Cheez-It Bowl, but there's a lot of good that can come out of it. So hopefully things work. It's going to be a very, very green team. But
yes, it is so tumultuous right now. Yeah, I mean, yes. We will talk more about the bowl later, but like kind of transition more into portal talk and just the future of this OU football program, because we're seeing a lot of young guys hit the portal. I think this whole Nick Evers is probably hitting people the hardest. Will it have the biggest impact on our future team? Probably not. But seeing guys like him, a true freshman, hit the portal is just kind of making you realize we really need to get guys coming back to OU from the portal. I think Alton Tarber leaving as a true freshman defensive lineman is a huge deal. We need defensive linemen from this portal, like bad. And while we're seeing a lot of our guys go out there into the portal right now, and we're at a net negative right now, I guarantee you that this OU football staff is just going to scour the portal this offseason. We're going to have guys like CJ Colton, Jonah Laulu, Jeffrey Johnson's contribute to our future team. Those people just got to materialize. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's some back channel talk too of these really good players that haven't hit the portal yet. OU telling them that they have a spot on our roster.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a brand new world when you have a guy who, in Nick Evers, who, he's a freshman, and instantly is out. I guess he wanted a competitive situation elsewhere. Didn't feel like he had that at OU, and I mean that's the way of the portal. If kids don't feel like they get a shot freshman year, they can immediately jump, and it's frustrating. But portal giveth, portal taketh. There will be guys on the market where OU can get that want to be in here, want to compete, and that's just kind of how it is. But that honestly, I have a lot of thoughts on that, but it doesn't matter.
Let's do it, because I think this is a big thing.
I have some thoughts.
Yeah, I want to dive into the Nick Evers conversation, because there's some Twitter people like that Big Honey guy, Big Honey 69 on Twitter.
Oh no,
at Nick Evers' mom. He can just seriously just suspend his Twitter account for the rest of the time. He's the type of people that I was legitimately. I've got so many bad things to say about OU Twitter, but yes, please, you and Ty go at it, because I've got my thoughts too.
I'm going to go ahead and say it. Yeah, no, here's my thing. One, don't tweet at recruits or like not players' moms, players' families. Just don't. That's just kind of such a gross, weird situation because it doesn't matter. At the same time, I also kind of think that Evers transferring that quick was a little frustrating. because look, if the coaches didn't think he was ready, he's not ready. And really, the only chance he would have gotten a truly, really would have had a qualm with is putting him over Bevel in the OU Texas game or getting some time in TCU. But like, I don't think that merits a transfer. The lack of patience is unfortunate, and I think some kids are about to get burnt. And leaving your freshman year, what did you expect as a true freshman coming to OU? Frankly, what did you expect? It's going to be a thing where it takes time, but you're not entitled to playing quarterback at OU as a freshman, a true freshman. So it's baffling to me. I don't know what he thought he was signing up for. Because
are you on Bobby's side, Ty, or are you going to be on my side?
Not at all.
I'm about to play
Not at all.
It's going to be 2v1 coming up.
But I understand. I'm not against Bobby. I'm just not on his side. I understand where Bobby's coming from, and I understand the frustration with people. Don't be tweeting at all. Don't have a Twitter. I've said this before. Elon took it over. It's not political, right? It's just terrible.
This is true.
I've been saying this for years. But don't be attacking people's, families or the people that are choosing to leave. I think these people are rightfully very upset, but they're attacking not to pander to Jameson specifically, but they're attacking the symptom and not the cause. I think Evers choosing to enter the portal and the timing, I'm not reading that as, oh, I'm upset that I didn't get playtime my freshman year. I'm reading that as the regular season's over. This is when all the people are moving around. He's looking around the locker room, hearing the conversations, and going, oh my God, is OU really about to stick with this bum at quarterback again next year? Like, are we going to settle for...
That's not my angle.
No, that was a bit of a joke. That was a bit of a joke. But reading into it, it sure sounds to me like Dylan Gabriel is going to be OU's starting quarterback next year. And he's seeing that, and he's going, I'm out of here. I'm going to go get somewhere. Because if he was going to transfer before, I don't know why he wouldn't have announced that earlier. Obviously, there are some reasons to wait, but I'm sure reading this as a next year thing, and that personally upsets me too, because I don't think that sticking with Dylan Gabriel is the right decision. I mean, I've been very outspoken about how I feel about him as a quarterback, but it's about developing your potential. I mean, I invest the time, invest the play time, invest the development in a guy who has potential and years with the program. I mean, there's all sorts of arguments about red shirts and whether or not he was ready this year. I'm reading it as he looked at what was going to occur next year, and I don't blame him for leaving. And I think there are some maybe bad decisions that are being made because of relationships or, biases or whatever else in that locker room. And it worries me that we're developing sort of a complacent system. There's a lot of assumptions in this, right? I'm jumping to a lot of assumptions, but assuming Dylan Gabriel will be our quarterback next year, I think that is a terrible decision, because I think we've seen more or less his ceiling. He's not as bad as I make him out to be when I do my little bits, but I don't think he's the guy that we need. And I would rather deal with a slight slump in quarterback play if it's going to be someone that truly at least has the potential to develop than deal with just being okay with mediocrity.
Mm-hmm.
Go
ahead, Bobby.
Here's my thing is, nothing about the situation entering Oklahoma has changed. He knew it was going to be Dylan Gabriel's team. And at the end of that, Gabriel had another year probably. And not only that, but he knew that Jackson Arnold was coming in. So that's my thing is, what did he expect? Like this played out exactly.
What has changed? Yeah. I think so much has changed. I think that's probably one of the easiest questions to answer. I think when you look at Nick Evers, obviously it hurts, and I see your argument, Bobby. But if you're wondering why Nick Evers is transferring, let's not point to Nick Evers. Let's not point to all those other things like OU fans want to do. Everyone's pointing their finger outwards. Turn that around, point it to you. Point it to the coaching staff. Point it to OU's program as a whole. I think, one, the situation wherever is, should Davis Bevel play or Nick Evers? Even if Nick Evers wasn't a conversation, I think the fans stirring up this whole Nick Evers needs to start, Nick Evers needs to play. This true freshman has barely gotten enough time to prepare, needs to play over and over and over, gets into a true freshman's head. This guy just came out of high school where he was the man. He was the man. He's ready to play. He might not be ready to play college football, but in his head, he thinks he is. And he probably felt disrespected that he went through all of that and he's not going to get the nod to go out there and give his chance to play. What did I come to OU for? If they're going to play Davis Bevel over me and all the fans are clamoring for me and we go and put up that stinker, how am I going to have any kind of trust in the rest of my years at Oklahoma whenever I have a 5-star, one of the guy who keeps rising up the ranks and keeps on playing amazing and Jackson Arnold behind me? What do I have here? And it's probably not a lot. And so I don't think we have to blame him at all. I think he made the right move. He's getting off the ship at the right time. Go play another year at another program. And even if you don't start then, go to a team that has a senior where you will be that guy guaranteed with no one chipping at your ankles behind you in a brand new system where you don't have that monkey on your back and all of that baggage that we created when Dylan Gabriel went down.
Okay, that's fair. My thing is, I think all the way across the board, we knew he wasn't going to really compete for that backup.
Wrong. You think that at the beginning of the season, but OU fans, absolutely not. How many questions?
Okay, there's a difference between the
Twitter, how many message boards, how many threads do we see of Nick Evers this, Nick Evers that, trying to push him into the limelight? That is a true freshman seeing that, saying like, yes, I want to get in there. And it tarnished him. He's spoiled. We opened the jar too early on him. And I'm sorry, his expiration date is creeping up.
Okay, I see what you're getting at. But at the same time, it's frustrating because this shouldn't be how it goes. But the OU Twitter world is not real life. They are not the real decision makers here at all. They're not, it's not a coaching staff by Twitter committee, by Twitter poll. He was never going to get in. And the people who really said that he were delusional. I have been against Evers in terms of him starting now the entire season. I have pretty much. You can go back and look at the record. Maybe I floated it as like, oh well, maybe if Bevel's bad.
I'm pretty sure. I think we can.
But he is. But he was.
He was trying to get Nick Evers because actually, I catch that. I do remember we did a little round robin of saying who should start this game if Dylan Gabriel can't play. Whenever Dylan Gabriel ended up playing, and I'm pretty sure I was the only one to say Davis Bevel, and y'all both said Nick Evers.
I'm pretty sure I said Booty. Just knowing me, I
maybe it might. Maybe
I kind of feel like I said Booty.
It might have been Booty, but I think Evers was name dropped a little bit.
We talked about him, but my thing was he was always too young and not physically there.
We have a podcast. We're obligated to talk about all the options.
Well, yeah. But what I'm saying is, obviously he's very malleable as a young kid, and all of this really hurt his confidence, I'm sure. Whenever they want to play him in the Texas game, but they throw him in at the very end of the fourth quarter and let him throw one throw in the dirt, and they don't give him anything to go with because Levy's play calling was extremely conservative that game. It just completely changes his confidence. If he stays in the wing, like you said, if he didn't have this situation, and Dylan Gabriel would have been QB1 throughout the season without a concussion, I understand. If he hits the portal, I'd be like, what's going on here? Like, this dude just needs to just sit and wait for his turn. It's just there's too much going along, and I think he just needs a clean slate where he can go somewhere else where he doesn't have this monkey on his back.
Yeah, and I get it. I'm with you. I think it's frustrating that is as much of it that might have as much of an impact as it does, because it shouldn't. It shouldn't. I think, and it's easy for me to say. I'm not 18 years old, and I'm not a star athlete with a bunch of dudes tweeting at me the whole time that I should be playing. I imagine that.
And he's a good kid. He's got a good head on his shoulders too.
I'm not saying, and I'm not trying to trash him or say he's a bad kid. It's just it's frustrating because it's like, well, yeah, of course. Like this is what you kind of signed up for. But I think you do have a good point because I think he will do better somewhere else. Just like the bevy of a lot of OU backups who didn't make it in the Lincoln Riley system. So. Yeah, I don't know. I think for me, it's a personal frustration that it's impossible to keep depth in a quarterback room in the year 2022 because of the portal. And you just can't you can't really can't do that because, I think as people have said in the comments, if you put him out there to get killed against Texas, what does that do for your confidence? There's really just a no-win situation with handling him. And it's not his fault. It's just, you can't, I don't know. You can't just be a guy, that is a second, third string, or because you can just leave if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
especially as a guy with his talent.
Yeah,
it could be hey, kind of a coincidence, kind of suspicious that he enters the portal right when Deion Sanders announces he's going to Colorado.
Deion Sanders' kid is going to be that quarterback. He doesn't want to sit behind him.
Deion has already said that. Like I believe he said in his first Colorado thing, it's like, son, stand up. His kid stands up. He's like, this is your quarterback now. Just immediately. Just
maybe it's still a more competitive quarterback situation than what's at OU currently. But what was I gonna say? Oh, ultimately, might be a coaching thing, not just in terms of coaches making the right decisions, but I had this put to me one time, and it was very profound, and I will now pass this profound knowledge on to you all, the listeners.
Thank you.
Ultimately,
and me,
sometimes, Jameson as well. He's listening. But ultimately, sometimes leadership is just gaslighting. Sometimes you just haven't, ultimately you're there to get the job done. Sometimes maybe you got to gaslight the people you're in charge of to get them to do what they need to do. Maybe our coaches didn't do a good enough job. I don't know. I don't want to say lying, but maybe presenting the truth in a different way to him, making him think that he could play or different things like that. I really think that with the timing of his announcement, he very clearly saw what was going to be occurring next year and how competitive things were going to be in the off season. And I would have a completely different stance on him. I understand you guys are going to jump on me. Oh, this is such a Gooner take, Ty, but I would have a completely different stance on him transferring if anything that we were doing at quarterback above him on the depth chart was working. And it's not. It's objective. I understand. Dillon Gabriel had the best game of his OU career. He was really, really good in the Texas Tech game. I will give him that. But
he was the newcomer of the year in the Big 12.
That is such a bullshit statistic. Pardon my non-advertiser friendly French, but this is his fourth year of playing at a D1 school. He's not a newcomer. He's the offensive newcomer in the Big 12. No, he's not. I can name 5 other guys, if you gave me like 20 minutes to do my research, they were better offensively, and this is their first. That's such a goofy statistic, or such a goofy award. It's like a J.D. Power #1 consumers happiest with their seatbelts award or something. God. But it's not working, right? It's even if you want to say, oh, Ty, he's so much better than you give him credit for, that's fine. Guess what we're not doing? Winning games. We are winning games at the same rate that I am picking spreads on the weekend spread. It's not good. If I were getting paid what Dillon Gabriel was making and had the time to do what he's doing, I believe that I would at least be above 500. So I would feel different because ultimately, look at Georgia. Look at all of these Bama national championship winning teams. Stetson Bennett is not winning them a championship.
He's playing pretty damn good, though.
Because he's on the best team in the nation. Are you kidding me? Tom Brady looked amazing the whole time he was on the Patriots. So I don't have any. I got too deep into the thing and then called Tom Brady a system quarterback.
He got too deep in the Dillon Gabriel cycle. Oh my god!
But when it goes on and wins it in a different system,
that was mostly a bit. Yeah, that was mostly a bit and a joke, and then also mostly serious. It's up to you guys to interpret what parts were what.
No, I mean, obviously the Dillon Gabriel thing, he has rooms for improvement, and he had a lot of negatives, but he was not the biggest negative of this football team. So we will not make that argument for this podcast, because I'm sure if we ever need a day where we could try to find 30 minutes of content, we can just argue with Ty about if Dillon Gabriel was the problem or not, because I'm sure he'll have the same opinion here in a couple months, no matter what happens here in about 3.5 weeks. Yeah,
and he might leave. That's part of it. So That would
He
be
did give
I
kind of
hope
a
so.
cryptic answer to that.
Yeah,
Because whenever
he
they
did.
God,
asked
I
him,
hope so.
and he says, we'll approach that later. And I mean, that's for some guy who's got another year and is just transferred into this program. Usually that's kind of like a no-brainer. Yes, I'm going to be with this team, and he wants to be a leader, right? Another thing, if he claims to be this big leader that took everyone else on the retreats this offseason and is the voice in the locker room, but says that kind of thing, I mean, is he really thinking about the NFL draft? That'd be the only thing that's respectable. I mean, I wouldn't if I was him. I absolutely wouldn't. You're at a team like OU, and the way he played this season, yes, he did put up some numbers, but you can't tell me you can't do that again next season with a team that's got a better record, hopefully, than 666, and can go out and make some national attention on yourself. I just don't see any way, shape, or form in the age of the NIL why, if you're a quarterback at Oklahoma, you would leave right now.
No, I'm with you. I don't think it makes any sense at all because I don't think he would be drafted very high, if at all.
Why would you want a 5'10", 5'11" quarterback who has been turnover prone, has gotten hurt this season? I don't see what team's looking for a guy like that.
This is
big brain move. Bob Stoops. Bob Stoops try to get him to the Renegades. Is my bet.
Oh my God, they already had their draft. He'd have to be a very highly sought after free agent. I don't know how that would even work.
Ooh, I don't know.
So we've spent a good amount of time on Evers. Is there anyone else who will not be playing? I guess we said we'll talk about opt-outs later, but portal wise, I guess keeping it on the portal thing. Is there anyone else who is portaling their way potentially off? Because you can pull yourself from the portal at any time, I guess is my understanding. So is there anybody else we should be talking about that is portaling?
Theo Weiss made it official, which we had been kind of talking about for a while, that he was like, this guy's going to get portaled. But he made it official this week. Other than that, it doesn't seem like we have any portals. I know there are probably some candidates out there, Jameson.
They're all backups. Let me just go down the list of who we've seen so far head into the portal. So we have Clayton Smith, promising edge from Texas, like high-end four-star, but just never seemed to get it. Cavante Henry, another defensive lineman, young guy. Jordan Mukes leaving sucks. Just straight up sucks. He wasn't getting much play at the end of the season, but that man is an athlete, an absolute athlete that was still getting a hold of the game of football. And having him leave this early in his career is a gut punch to OU, and I guarantee OU was trying hard to keep him. Another guy, Josh Eaton. I think he was a guy that we would have liked to have along with Kendall Dennis. Kendall Dennis probably more so. Kendall Dennis showed some things in the little limited time that he was out there. He's a ball hawk. He can get interceptions. Josh Eaton had some length. He redshirted this year. It's a shame to see them go. But Alton Tarber, another guy that we really miss. I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, defensive lineman, big guy. But Bryson Washington, I'm sure, probably was told that he can probably look elsewhere. He just recently entered the portal yesterday. And then Bray Walker, backup guard. It's probably been about time for him that he can get to go, because when you're a 5-star prospect out of Oklahoma and you don't start 4 years at OU, it's probably best you take your one last year of eligibility elsewhere and see if you can go make it. With that much size and that much athleticism, hopefully you can get somewhere and put your name on tape for NFL draft scouts, because it wasn't going to happen at OU. But, assumption-wise, Bobby, I don't think we're looking at any big names that we haven't heard yet that are going to hit the portal, to be completely honest with you. If there are big names, we don't know about them. I think that the secondary will continue to get hit because we did not rotate many secondary guys that I think we should have throughout the year. Our secondary played very poorly, and there are some guys that I'm like, why am I not seeing these guys? I think, Bryson Washington, Kendall Dennis are Exhibit A. Like, why didn't we see more of them whenever we were struggling so much in that secondary? So I wouldn't be surprised to continue to see a little bit more, because it seems like a couple are trickling in every single day.
Yeah, there will definitely be more guys. This is not the beginning or the end. It's kind of like right in the middle. That's the definition of that. But no, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Obviously, last year we saw several guys wait until after the ball game to portal. So there's a lot left to it. But in terms of guys coming in, obviously we can't probably give exact names. But what are positions that you think Venables is really going to start hawking at? Because I think the biggest three, it has to be O-line, D-line, wide receivers, right?
I think you can push O-line to number 4. I think you put D-line number 1 because our pass rush, embarrassing. We already talked about that. Absolutely embarrassing. Have none. I want guys on the outside. And we're going to need some guys on the inside too. Losing Jalen Redmond, one of the few guys that we actually had getting a pass rush from the inside, leaving. So yes, defensive line number 1 to me. Number
Absolutely.
2, I think wide receiver, maybe. Because I think Marvin Mims is still iffy if he's coming back, to tell you the truth. I know it's crazy.
Surprising.
This was a type of guy that was getting first-round draft grades in some mock drafts in the preseason, and he's dropped a lot from the way he's played. And to be honest with you, is it best for him to stay? Is it best for him to leave or go somewhere else? So, I mean, I'm still thinking the favorites for him to stay, but it's not guaranteed. And I think to fill Theo Weiss's spot, we're probably going to, and then Drake Stoops' spot, probably. We're going to need some wide receivers. The number 3, I think, is the defensive back room. I think we've got some good players there, but we'll need some depth. We very much need some depth after this processing that Brent Venables is going through right now of taking away kind of the guys that were from the old scheme of this speed D and bringing in smarter IQ guys that can play Brent Venables' zone scheme defense.
Yeah, definitely. Ty, any positions you would like to see from the portal?
Yeah, so all joking, all bits aside, I don't really think we're in that bad of a position when it comes to the offense. Obviously, things could develop next year and we could see, oh my goodness, yeah, we're in way worse of a position than we thought. I've never had a cold take though, so I don't expect that to come true. But yeah, D-line is got to be number 1 for me as well. But just anything defense. Personally, if I could just get in Brent Venables' ear and say, hey, let's just let whatever happens on offense next year happen. Let's lock down and really start to build this defensive bedrock that's going to form our team going forward. Because my personal concern is that we don't have that sense of urgency with building a team. And it's sort of like we talked about earlier in the year when you get down to, say you're losing by 7 or you're losing by 10 and you have the ball and there's 8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, you should probably be playing like there's a little bit less time. You should have that sense of urgency already. And I think that we are in a time right now where we really need to have that sense of urgency, especially on the defense, recruiting hard, trying to flip people, trying to get people to transfer in here. So I know I'm going kind of wide left and right on the prompt that we've been given or you've given me here, but I think defensively has got to be the focus starting out that D-line. I mean, it's so cliche to say, but that is the foundation. That is where everything else, happens from the defense. You can, if you're really pro defensive line, you can say the D-line it's your first line of defense, pun intended, because everything is a D-line thing. If the opponent is running, that's on the D-line to stop, and then everyone else is just there to back them up. If they're throwing, the D-line's there to sack them and to ruin that play. And I personally view the backs and everyone else is just sort of your insurance plan for if you can't get to the quarterback. So that's a little bit of a stretch, but D-line has got to be the main one. And then I think from there, I'd start to look at backs. Maybe if we're just specifically talking about the portal, I understand people have a lot of criticisms and a lot of worries about the development of our linebackers and our linebacker depth and situation next year. But I think if you can get away in college with having fairly lackluster linebackers, not saying ours are, but you can get away with having some lackluster linebackers if you have just a solid D-line and corners that just don't let people get open. Yep. I'd say it's a little bit different in the NFL, but D-line, can't say it enough.
Yeah, especially in Brent's system, that D-line is absolutely the most important piece of playing a zone. So Yeah. Let's move on to some other stuff that OU has to figure out. Wide receiver coach, and maybe getting Ted Roof out of there. I don't know. Jameson, what do you think? Obviously, let's start with the wide receivers, and specifically who should lead them. Obviously, there's been some rumors here and there about Malcolm Kelly trying to poach him from TCU, bring him home. But there have been some other ones along the way as well. What have you heard, and who would you like?
To be honest with you, I think we probably can give up on Malcolm Kelly. Maybe there might be a big push, a big money push from the board at the end of it, but it seems like our time for Malcolm Kelly was last year, and we didn't get him then. And we tried to get him, obviously, whenever Gundy had his mishap here at the last second before the season, and it was too late. He was stuck to TCU, and ended up being an absolute blessing for Malcolm Kelly. Look what he's done with Quentin Johnston. Quentin Johnston might be the first picked wide receiver in this coming draft, the way he's been playing.
Absolutely.
Obviously, has not been the healthiest, and his conditioning hasn't been the best. But with Jackson Smith and Jigba not being healthy throughout this whole season for Ohio State, Quentin Johnston, his stock has moved up. And having guys like him and developing in the way he can catch the ball at the high point, a guy Malcolm Kelly can really teach a lot to. That's going to look very good on him as a coach. So his stock's getting higher and higher. I just don't think we can get him. Rashad Samples has been the other name that all the OU fans are talking about, and I don't blame him. He's currently the running back coach at the Los Angeles Rams. LOL, the dude has got like the worst running back room in all of the NFL. An absolute laughing stock of a running back room in Los Angeles. Honestly, a laughing stock of an offense. Good for them today. They've done somewhat, better. But Matthew Stafford having a spinal cord contusion and their running backs not want to play for them anymore. Like, it's been a disaster. So he might not be the developer at wide receiver that you might see, my 3-star wide receiver come in and he's going to make them better technically, because he was a former wide receiver, but he doesn't have that coaching experience to coach wide receivers. But man, can he recruit. He could get those 5-star guys in the Texas area that are going to Texas A&M and Texas that are absolute just like an Evan Stewart. He would be in our recruiting class if Rashad Samples was our wide receiver coach. And you got to think about it. Would you take the hit on your wide receivers being a little bit underdeveloped to get guys that don't need as much development because they're already so skilled? It's kind of a slippery slope. Kind of scares me a little bit. So I don't know if I'm in love with the type of guy like that.
Yeah, no, I know it's tricky. And
I don't want another Roy Manning situation where the guy's just coaching something he's never done before.
Yeah, to be fair, at least Samples has played wide receiver.
Sure.
So there is that at Oklahoma State, of all places, by the way. So it's a tricky thing. And I mean, hell, Gundy didn't play wide receiver, and he was a good recruiter, apparently. So there's that. It would really be more of a lateral move.
I just don't want him to be his first time teaching wide receivers how to play at the University of Oklahoma. Go somewhere else and do that for a couple years. Then we can see you're good, and then we'll take you. He's only had experience with running backs and being a program recruiter.
That's fair. Yeah, it's tricky, and you really hope they get someone good. And like you said, last year was kind of the time for Kelly, but Gundy was there, and it's just unfortunate timing because Kelly would have been great, but at this point you have to kind of make do with what you have. And I don't really know, wide receiver coach wise, who else would be a good fit. Because it seems like those two names keep coming up, but I'm not really super hand up, not well versed in the world of wide receiver coaches. Don't know the best candidates out there.
I think Darrell Wyatt from Boston College was another name that I saw circulating around the Schooner Fear. He has an OU connection? Did he play at OU? Is that what the connection is? I'm gonna have to
Daniel
look that
Wyatt?
up.
What was his
Darrell
name?
Wyatt.
Darrell Wyatt.
Maybe not. Maybe I'm lying, but that was another name that I had written down in my notes that people were talking about as a possible wide receiver. But to be honest with you, it's not looking like there's a sexy option like Malcolm Kelly on the table right now.
Yeah, Darrell Wyatt was if I believe this is the same one, he was the passing game coordinator in 2005 and was wide receiver coach at OU from 2002 to 2004. If that's
Well,
the
then
same
there's
one I'm
your
thinking
connection.
of. Yeah. That sounds right. So he was his receiver coach during the, that kind of the back-to-back national championship appearance years. So there you go.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. And let's move on to let's move on to Levy.
Oh,
Ty,
to Levy. To Levy.
Not
Are we
Levy.
going to
Not
replace
Levy. Not
Levy?
Levy. Not Levy.
And Ty.
Levy.
Ty, do you
Ty.
want to replace Levy?
No.
Yeah,
no.
Replace everyone at this point. I do have a quick note on receivers.
Yeah, go for it, Ty. Sorry.
And it's sort of while Bobby composes his thoughts. I personally am in the anti Malcolm Kelly camp. And my take on that has nothing to do with how great of a job he's done, how great of an OU player he was, how important he is to OU history and the culture of any program that he's in. But I would really like for us to really start to spread out we have a head coach who spent a lot of his career at Oklahoma. We have an offensive coordinator who has ties already to Oklahoma. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I would really like to start to get people, because we have a lot of people that have resumes that are full of OU, full of Texas schools, full of like Malcolm Kelly, at TCU right now. The other couple guys that we mentioned, Darryl Wyatt spent a lot of time at Texas, specifically spent a lot of time at other Texas schools, I believe, and then also OU. And it's just, that's great. But I would like for us to, spread out some of those resumes, maybe someone that only ever has experience in Florida or California or one of those other recruiting hotbeds, because I feel like, if you can make your argument, what do we want out of a WR coach specifically? Is he going to be a recruiting guy first? And then, like the PE teacher that also has to teach like state history, is he also just going to be pretending to develop people, but he's actually not doing anything? Or do we want someone that's there to develop people but suffers a little bit in recruiting? Personally, I would lean more towards the recruiter side, just with wide receivers specifically. Not that that's not a hard thing that requires a lot of development, but I would really like to see someone whose resume maybe didn't read Oklahoma or somewhere in Texas on it. Someone that has a good resume, and it would be hard to beat Malcolm Kelly's resume, certainly, but like we said, he might be a bit of a moonshot at this point, but I think someone who has a resume that doesn't read Oklahoma on it could potentially be a good ad, just looking at it from the recruiting standpoint, to have some sort of network from somewhere else outside of, just the local area. Because I would worry that, maybe we're starting to struggle to recruit and connect to people if we really start to just have a coaching staff and a recruiting staff that is all just North Texas, Austin, Oklahoma specific.
Just to sort of diversify it out a bit. I get that. I think that's fair. But let's talk about Roof.
Yes.
What do we think? Do we need more than just a placeholder guy that just is essentially a glorified defensive analyst, Jameson?
Yeah, I think we do. I think Brent Venables got a little in over his head. He's the type of guy that wants to do everything. He wants to do it perfect. And if he isn't doing it perfect, he's going to keep on trying and keep on talking until he makes it perfect. But sometimes whenever you keep on trying and you keep on talking, you're in a circle and you're stuck. And I feel like Brent Venables kind of was there, honestly. So, yes, Ted Roof, there is a chance that he could leave. The talk is if he were to leave the defensive coordinator position, he would still stay on staff as an analyst in some sort. There wouldn't even be kind of like a bad blood situation where he's fired and gone. But we would need somebody, I think, in my opinion, like a Ted Roof that could do a better job than Ted Roof. Could go out there and put out his own defense and make the calls, not put that all on Brent Venables' shoulders. Let him be a head coach. And I think having someone with head coaching experience in that position next to Venables, who's coming in, obviously showing some growing pains as a leader, is a huge deal. Having someone you can confide in who's had tough experiences like that. And there's a lot of names that keeps getting thrown across. And I think my favorite one that I saw on the board I saw so far is Bronco Mendenhall, ex-Virginia coach in BYU. I don't know. He's been out of the game for, a year now. But a guy like that who's been around town, who's had some clout in the past, like that name carries weight. He's got good defensive schemes. Has been a head coach and can stand by, a Brent Venables. There's Jim Leonard, Ryan Walters, or other names that are getting thrown around. A couple of those are younger guys that have never been head coach before. Who's got, if you're looking for a more up and coming kind of guy. But I think the idea, what we were going with Ted Roof, was a very good idea. I just don't know how much he has in his repertoire to create a different defense than what Brent Venables could do. We want something similar to Brent Venables' mindset, but not too different to where we can keep his scheme and kind of use his repertoire.
Mendenhall would be a really interesting person to have in the building, probably in my mind, a little bit more as an analyst, in the same way that, Nick Saban holds his, school for, fired head coaches who can't coach good and want to coach better. That usually works. But, Mendenhall for me, he started his head coaching career in 2005 with BYU, built them up, and then, went through his, 6 odd years at Virginia. So I don't know. I see the benefit there, but it's kind of hard to go back to being a coordinator from there. But no, I think you're right. You have to have someone in the same way that, Sonny Dykes has used Garrett Riley, for example, on offense, where even though Dykes is an offensive guy, he gives it to Riley, has him essentially operate it as he sees fit, but they have the same ideas. They have the same, thought process, and they just let him kind of go. Because, Jameson, as we know, if you're the head coach, you can't also be the main coordinator. It just doesn't work. It's too much. Of a
you
split.
can if you're a special person, and Venables it just didn't seem to work for him in that first year. Yeah,
no, and I don't think he was specifically calling the defense in the same way. It was really just Roof. But it didn't work. Whatever was going on did not work defensively in terms of scheme, in terms of in-game adjustment. It wasn't. I think primarily because it wasn't Brent's defense. He wasn't able to do the real thing. He had to kind of do a bit of a half measure. But yeah. Ty, your thoughts on Roof, defensive and defensive coordinators, all that good stuff.
Yeah, obviously there's a lot of unknowns. Nobody knows outside of the staff and the program just how much control certain people had over what things. But the prevailing narrative, certainly the one that we've generally pitched on this, is that Roof is more or less a figurehead or just a person in a seat, and Venables is the one that's really trying to do all the driving. I don't like that system, but if that is what's occurring, and if we're going to stick to that, I think with Bronco Mendenhall, like you guys mentioned, is sort of the right idea. If we're looking at, because we have to have a coordinator, you have to have an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator. I firmly believe that. But I would like our offensive coordinator, specifically with Brent Venables, to be that sort of that guy that has the power, someone that maybe we can hang on to for a little bit. If he has to learn with us, he can learn with us, and we really develop something there. When I look at the defensive coordinator and how we're presuming that the situation is running with Venables having most control and just having someone that he's there to, bounce ideas off of maybe, or get a different eye on things from the booth. I see some commenters saying, I'd rather have our DC down on the field. I personally, if Venables is the one doing all the play calling and the DC is just kind of like an assistant or something that's just kind of hanging out, yeah, I would rather have him on the sideline too, interacting with the players and stuff while the head coach is paying attention to the game. But I really like the idea of former head coaches or guys trying to develop. Venables certainly does not have the resume currently, hopefully one day, to run the Nick Saban system where he can just have a ridiculous staff of analysts. Analysts can't interact with the players, I believe, to some extent, or the way that Bama system is set up. I like the idea of a guy being a full-on DC, even if he's a coach that's down and out. And I had this before Jameson even mentioned Bronco Mendenhall, and we'll say 93% joking on this one, but Gary Patterson. This is not the year to have done it. I think he's, because I think he's going to land. I think he'll land a head coaching job.
will.
coming up in this offseason. Probably not a great one, but this past year, in place of Ted Roof, if we had, just Slick Gary up in the booth, just someone that can really, but someone who has a good defensive mind, can develop the players, maybe can look at things a different way. I would really like to see us with the defensive coordinator route specifically, as long as we have Venables. I don't care if every 2 years it's a new guy. If it's an experienced guy, even if it's a guy that's having a rough patch in his career, head coach is a hard job in college at a lot of places. A lot of places you're not set up to succeed and you will fail regardless. I'd be fine with just a rotating carousel of guys that are on their way out from a head coaching job, but have a defensive mind, and have potential. They're not fired for some egregious reason. They're just kind of forced out for performance or whatever else. I would be fine with that system. That's actually the system I would prefer at DC. So I don't have a specific name beyond Gary Patterson. That's mostly a joke. But yeah, Bronco Mendenhall, I think, fits my mold of what I was thinking as well. So I like that as well.
I think the moral of the story with this is you're seeing a bunch of big names where we don't have a vacancy. We're not just looking to fill it. Ted Roof, obviously, we would want a better option to take some weight off of Brent Venables' shoulders as a head coach. But we have Roof, and we're going to keep him no matter what in some sort of capacity. So if we can't find anything better than him, he'd probably be our coach next season. But if we could stumble across somebody in this process that is an absolute bomb hire, like a really good fit for us, that is that perfect mold that you're talking about, Ty, we will move on from Roof as defensive coordinator.
Yeah, for sure. I'd like to make a note, by the way, not to go back to offense, but according to GoMeanGreen.com, there might be a pretty solid offensive coaching hire that might have just opened up. They're reporting, and again, it's GoMeanGreen.com. Don't know if I believe them. Seth Luttrell just got fired.
No.
Yeah,
really?
There's no, surely not. But so take it with a grain of salt. But if Seth Luttrell opens up, and I know it's like, oh yeah, you don't want too many OU guys in there, but that could be a solid analyst pickup if they
no
actually
way he
fired
goes
him.
straight to
But there's
an
no
analyst,
way,
right?
We're gonna hire a running back as our defensive coordinator.
No,
Oh
that's
my
why I said
God.
offense on the offensive side.
Oh, okay. I was like, that's a terrible defensive coordinator.
No, that would be funny. It's like, no, he played linebacker in high school. He can handle it. No, I was just saying, like, if we wanted someone on the offensive end, not bad. Because, but also again,
I'm seeing
grain
it
of
from
salt
multiple people talking about
Oh
Seth
my
Luttrell
God.
out. Well,
That's wild.
another OU option.
They
just made
North
the
Texas
conference championship, so that's. I don't know what they're going to do. You think does North Texas think they're going to do better? Like, really?
What the hell?
Like, what are they going to do here?
Apparently,
the North Texas Eagle just
who do y'all think y'all are? North Texas.
I wish we had Blake on live for this one. No North Texas hater.
Yeah, well, because he just hates the weird green Texas flag, I think primarily. But wow, that's wild. So I don't know. I don't hate that idea. He was at OU at the same time Venables was. So wow, that would be a good ad.
Oh no, it's a very abrupt, unexpected firing. Hopefully this podcast does not age terribly. More news comes out.
At least we properly hedged.
Yeah, now that we've added that disclaimer in.
There's been so many times where I say something on a podcast and I'm like, and then I go to the next morning and I see some kind of like thing that completely just negates everything I said. I'm like, are you kidding me? I sound so stupid to all the listeners.
People listening to this on their commute to work tomorrow morning, hearing Bobby go, I think he's a great guy. We should hire him. Hopefully that does not age poorly.
Oh man. Jeez. Oh God. Oh no, I didn't think about that.
Oh, yeah, God. When you have an unexpected firing
or something.
Oh God.
Great scene.
Hypothetically, if nothing bad happened, that might not be a bad idea. But we don't know. Oh no. That Mickey Joseph. Time to wrap up Mickey Joseph. What a Mickey Joseph wide receiver coach. Wow, what a hire that would be.
Hey, Bobby, plug all of our listeners right now of something big we got going.
Yes, absolutely. We've got a massive deal for y'all. It's bowl season. We're pumped up about it. So we are starting our own Bowl Mania group. We've had this every year, but this time we're playing for some cash here.
A lot.
So yeah, for real this time. We're $150 in prizes we're giving out. Starting with, if you win the damn thing, if you can beat me, Blake, Ty, and Jameson, if you can top that table, you get $100. Second place, 35, and then third, that's a solid 15. So not too bad. Not too bad. But if you want to sign up, we will send the link right here. Just make sure you subscribe to the Schooner Pod.
We will be checking.
We will be
winners,
checking.
if they're not a subscriber with that timestamp of when you did it. If it wasn't just like, ooh, I won, I subscribed. No, you need to have subscribed before your bracket goes live.
Yes. Yeah. Let us know. Yeah, you gotta let us know. So we'll send that in the comments right now, and we'll have it in the description, I believe. So yeah. I'm not sure how we're going to police that, but we'll try our best.
I will police it. I will be a part. I will be a part. I will check the receipts. So if you're not already subscribed already, go subscribe. Find that link in the description for our Bowl Mania. If you're listening right now on podcast form, go check our Twitter account. We'll be tweeting it out. But if you click that link from the Twitter account and go in and you're a part of this, you better be subscribed. I'm checking the receipts.
Yeah, DM us for the password and we'll let you know. But yeah, also click the link and give us that subscribe, because otherwise you ain't getting no money. You got to subscribe to the Schooner Pod. So we're doing it against the spread, as we do with the weekend spread. So it'll be a little tricky, a little tougher, but it'll be pretty good. So I'm certainly looking forward to it. This challenge is always a little spicy, and now Jameson can't sit on his laurels of you're good at the spread.
I love the confidence picks. I love holding the big old confidence number 40 for right at the end. I put all my marbles down so I can hedge and pick Texas to win the Sugar Bowl in those years.
That was one of the that was one of the luckiest moves ever, because we were all, you were dead in the water and you just got away with that. But yeah, check out that link right there in the comments and the description, and join the pod. Join the Pod Pick'em group. It'll be pretty fun. So yeah. All right. Any business we want to kind of finish before we end the episode? Jameson?
Go Frogs.
Go Frogs. Yeah. If y'all, hey, we have a really great reaction video to the CFP Final Four on our YouTube. Make sure to check that out. It's pretty good. Bowden Blake gets a moment. It's awesome. Ty, any final thoughts?
Sink Army.
Yes. That's the other thing, too. Coming up on Wednesday, Army-Navy preview. Me and Ty. It's going to be great. It's an annual tradition of ours, and I'm very pumped about that. So, looking forward to that as well. All right, folks. For me, Jameson and Ty, this has been the Schooner Pod. Thank you so much for listening. We will be back at it on Wednesday as we break down Army-Navy. But until then, have a great one. And stay cheesy. Stay cheesy, folks.